Okay, so welcome to Tech Talking Points. We welcome your comments, questions, stuff like that, and any other input. And yeah.
My name is Tobias Mann. I'm a tech blogger and a journalism student here in Winona, Minnesota.
And I'm Andrew Massat. This is something for me to do because I only have 3 semesters left of college, and I feel like my portfolio is kind of lacking. I'm a graphic design major, and this is me increasing it. So today, what we're talking about is Sony's QX cameras get updates, making them more desirable. Still no manual mode. Netflix launching 4K for someone. Netgear's NAS with a 10 Gigabit NIC. Security on smartphones, how important is it? Steam removes games that are no longer playable from users' libraries. Google closing another company and removing their apps. Doge, the source of a meme. Google Glass, more widely available. The new Mac Pro, that's a thing. Federal judge has no issue with NSA Metadata collection. And apparently, E-cigs are visually obtrusive. And Chromebooks take 21% of U.S. notebook market share in 2013.
All right, so let's get started.
So, Sony's QX cameras, if you don't know what those are the basically just camera lenses that you can snap on or whatever to the back of a smartphone. So you use, say, the Nexus 5 as a viewfinder. I thought they were kind of interesting when they came out. They're way too expensive. Nah, I guess they're not way too expensive if they did what I wanted them to. But the problem is they're not even like one of those half SLR cameras with the no detachable lenses, because there's no manual mode on them still. They have like aperture priority and shutter priority, but yeah, there's no full manual. And they also just added the ability to actually capture HD video. There were weird resolutions before, not the normal 16:9 aspect ratio. And they added higher ISOs, like 12,800 ISO, which I can't imagine how those pictures would not look like utter mess. So, yeah. What do you think about that?
It was that super high ISO was on the QX 100, wasn't it?
Probably.
Yeah. Like, there's a big price disparity between the two models that I thought was interesting. One of them's like actually kind of accessible at like just over $200. And the other one's way over almost $500. I think they're cool ideas. I just don't think they're quite ironed out yet. I think they'll be better in version 2. How about you?
It's progress. They still don't interest me because they don't have manual. And that's what I want in a camera.
I guess I just don't know who the exact market is for them, because I think photographers who actually want to take photos are just going to have a camera on them. I mean, it doesn't take up all that much more space just to have an actual camera with you rather than some camera phone hybrid that goes in between.
Well, see, the only thing important on the camera is the sensor and the glass. All the other stuff you could have on your smartphone, no problem. That's why I'm interested in it, because essentially then all I'd have to carry around is a little small lens. So that's what I want. I want to have a lens in one pocket and my smartphone in the other. And I'd be a lot happier with that than having even micro four thirds camera or something.
How big exactly are those sensors in them? Do you remember?
I have no idea how big the sensors are in them. I assume not that big.
Because, I mean, if you look at something like the Nokia Lumia 1020, that actually has a really big sensor in it. And it's got the megapixel count so high you can do pretty much lossless digital zoom.
Yeah, but that also is... that doesn't really have a lot of glass there. That's the big thing about it. And it's not lossless digital zoom, it's just acceptable loss, because you're bringing down the megapixels to something reasonable.
Yeah. I don't know. I think you're always going to have a better result with optical zoom anyway, so it's a cool idea. I just don't understand who the market is for these kind of things. I think prosumer camera enthusiasts, photography enthusiasts, they're going to have something else they're going to use, and it's going to look a hell of a lot better than this. I don't know, maybe families who want to take better pictures of their kids.
I don't know. That I don't know. I just don't get it. It's like it's halfway to what I want, but it's still not quite there. And that, from comments that I've seen about it, it kind of looks like people are of the same opinion. No manual still. What the hell? That's about it. Okay, let's move on to something else that's more interesting.
Okay, so Netflix is announcing that they're going to begin streaming their in-house shows in 4K, starting with House of Cards, which would be interesting if anybody owned anything capable of streaming 4K. And yeah, because the big issue right now, I guess, looking at this article that debuted on Extreme Tech, was that there's no way of getting that stream from the computer to a monitor, so it has to be right to the monitor. So the solution right now is let's stream it to smart TVs, which just means the issue is you still need new hardware.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, the problem with streaming 4K is it has such a high bandwidth that what do you call it? Telecom's already complaining and fighting with Netflix over streaming normal 720p content and SD content. So 4K content, that's going to have awful long buffer times and also just horrible bitrate quality. So it's going to look like pixel art in 4K. So I just don't see why that's happening. It's until we have better infrastructure and I have a fiber line coming to my house, this is kind of stupid.
I know, looking at that article, they were suggesting you'd need something, right around 15 megabit connection, which I thought was hilarious because, 15 megabit connection's pretty fast, but it's still not fast enough for good bit rates, 1080p.
Yeah, well, another thing is a lot of these nodes that you're on can't handle this. So, like, in Winona, we were having horrible internet problems, and we kept asking when it was, because it was always at specific times, and it was just that all these college students having pretty good internet, they were reaching max capacity on our node, so they were having to, like, split it off to alleviate traffic. There isn't the infrastructure for this. So it's beside the point if you have fast enough internet speed, the infrastructure isn't fast enough. You just cause a traffic jam. You cannot get it. So if it became mainstream, we would not have the infrastructure for it. If one person on the block is watching it, it'd work. But that's not going to happen. And also the whole thing about no one having 4K displays.
Yeah, I was going to say, until 4K displays get much, much, much cheaper, I mean, they're not bad right now. Oh, but still, they're not cheap either. And then you're going to have, within 5 years, you'll be able to pick up a Chinese knockoff of one. But we're still going to have the same problem. They also brought up in the thing was that Blu-ray's not capable of it yet.
That's kind of misdirected because I think Blu-ray is capable of it. It's just the Blu-ray drives that people have in their TVs aren't because they're using HDMI 1.4, not HDMI 2, which is capable of streaming 4K. So you could put a 4K Blu-ray in the player and nothing would happen. Unless you're using, like, it on a computer. Pretty sure if you put a 4K Blu-ray on a desktop, it'd work fine.
Well, that assumes you're not connecting via HDMI 1.4, like you said. You still have to have the...
No, in that case, you're connecting via SATA.
Oh yeah, you mean a hardwired monitor.
Just plugging a Blu-ray into a desktop. You could have a 4K video file on it and play it just fine. But that's not a hardware restriction. In that case, that's a software thing. But on a Blu-ray player, it's a hardware restriction because you're streaming it through HDMI, which HDMI 1.4 can't.
Well, still wouldn't that be, that would only be resolved with a all-in-one where the monitor is part of the computer and is hardwired to the motherboard. Wouldn't that still be an issue if you're connecting a monitor to the back of a desktop?
No, DisplayPort, whatever the current thing DisplayPort is, can handle 60 hertz 4K. And also you can do dual DVI, two dual DVI plugins to like the back of that Asus 4K display to achieve the same thing.
Oh, I see. That makes sense. It's just that HDMI, the standard for all Blu-ray and television connections,
Yeah,
isn't going to be
HDMI sucks.
adequate.
That's the thing. Things like DisplayPort just work better. They're like a generation ahead.
Okay, let's. I think we can move on here to the next one.
Okay. So Netgear came out with a, I guess you could say, consumer grade NAS, which is a network attached storage. That's like if you want to have 20 hard drives sitting on your desk at your house or in a closet. And what I thought was interesting about it is it has a 10 gigabit NIC card on it, which is, most computers that have an Ethernet port on the back of it is gigabit, so this is 10 times as fast. And just kind of intrigued that this is on a consumer level product. Usually you only see stuff like this on rack mounts that you have in like a server farm. So I was just wondering if you think that like in-house networking is actually going to step up now that especially like wireless ACs around, and that can get over gigabit performance. So do you think 10 base is going to be coming to houses, like how gigabit's been around for as long as I can remember? Do you think we're going to get an upgrade, or do you think Ethernet is just kind of going to go away and only edge cases like myself will be using it?
Well, I was going to actually ask you who you thought was the user base for something like this. Who would be using this? Because I can't for the life of me figure out, what kind of family would need something like this. Now, I looked at it like, makes perfect sense for production houses. I was like where my dad works out at Arctic. All the engineers have to work on network saved CAD graphics, which are massive. So it all becomes an issue of getting things connected quickly in-house. So I can see where something like this would be really useful there, but they already have that rack infrastructure.
Yeah,
So,
that's what I was saying. Something like this would be interesting to me in my house, just because I do play around with big files, and being able to back up everything, I'd like mirror my hard drives on my desktop on the fly would be kind of nice. But also, it would be really nice to have in like a small office environment. But this obviously is not meant for, it's like prosumer and small business, because pretty much it just says that right with what it has in it. It has a Xeon in it. Normal people don't buy Xeons.
yeah, I was going to ask you about why do you need all of that power behind that thing? I was looking at it. What was it? 16 gigs of RAM. That makes kind of some sense because you got to do some caching. But a Xeon processor, that's kind of overkill, wouldn't you say?
Well, you can basically use it as like a small server, and you can have it encoding stuff. But that's really the thing. What you do with the Xeon is have it encoding stuff. So if you have on-the-fly compression or something, I don't know. Haven't looked into it too much. I was more interested in 10 times gigabit speed, and then daydreaming about building a in-house network like that. But I don't think anyone's going to do that because those are stupid expensive, like the cards.
What were they talking for price on these things? I thought I saw it.
Oh, they're like $3,000.
See, that's not that bad if you need a real small basic server where storage is the real concern. So if you were starting a small business, 5, 10 people who need access to large files, say you're a design firm, startup, this might be something that's more accessible. So I think it's just kind of one of those middle ground devices that fits the needs of a smaller subset of people.
Yeah. You're right. Just kind of interesting. We can
No,
move
it's
on.
definitely cool. I mean, it's progress, if anything, to see that finally we're getting faster and faster. I mean, I was pretty sick of seeing HSPA, radios being put into devices. It was sad to see the Nexus 4 get it. It's sad to see the Apple Find 5 get it. It was kind of like, why don't we see more LTE? And so, in the same kind of boat, this kind of thing, pushing that boundary and moving us forward is really good to see, even if it's not really that useful.
Okay. Well, I guess we can move on. Pretty sure it's not very interesting to anyone since it's only meant for a very niche market to begin with.
Yeah, I suppose. Okay. So here's one. So I don't know how many of you lock your phones, pattern lock, pin lock, what have you. But so there's this question of security on a smartphone and how effective it is and how useful it is. And Lifehacker had a little thing about setting up your phone to activate a pin lock or a password lock on it when you left your house or left your home Wi-Fi network. And I think they used either one app that was like $3 that would do it automatically, or you could set up Tasker, which is like a phone automation app to do it, along with another app you need to set it up. But it's kind of like, how important is phone security and keeping what's on your phone secure? So what do you think, Andrew?
The whole reason I was looking at this article is because I used to have a pin on my iPhone, but as you say, went to the Nexus 5, I just kind of got annoyed with it and stopped using it. More because I've barely left my house all break. So, I don't know. It just doesn't seem necessary at the moment. I'll probably put security back on my phone, but also I don't need to have it because I don't have my school email on it or nothing that sensitive that requires me to have it. But it's kind of scary to think about because you could reset my passwords on probably everything and change it to whatever you want because you have access to my email on it if you got my phone.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. Locking your phone really doesn't do all that much. You can get around it pretty easily, but for usability standpoint, it's pretty good. I mean, it's not going to stop somebody from resetting your phone factory reset to be able to resell it, but it will stop
Or the
them from
data,
getting
right?
it. Oh, what was that?
It's not easy to bypass a lock screen like in Windows, where you can get you can just pretty much. It's really easy to get past a Windows lock screen. It's not like that on Android, is it? Like if I have it locked, you can't just like plop it into the computer and read everything like it's an SD card. I think you could.
You can, but average Joe's not going to be able to do it. You have to put the device in the bootloader mode, and then you'd have to get into the recovery mode, but then you could get in, and then your device would have to be, well, it might have to be rooted. I can't remember. I haven't done it in a while. But you can get in to get the files off of it. You're just not going to get useful information like passwords and all that, because that is stored securely most of the time. So I mean, it's like the concept behind why you lock your doors. It's not going to stop the the lock-picking thief from stealing everything you own, but it is going to stop the average Joe on the street from walking up into your house and becoming dishonest. So it keeps good people honest.
Yeah. I just think there needs to be a better way to secure phones, especially considering how much potentially harmful data is stored on them now. Like, my desktop sits at my house and is locked in my room. Most people don't even have access to that. I have forgotten my phone on a sofa before in the middle of a library. So, a lot of people have access to that. And you could just rip off you could password recover something, get my email from my email address, and change the password, and walk away. Basically, me having two-factor authentication on everything becomes redundant.
Yeah, exactly. Especially on the phone, two-factor authentication means absolutely nothing because the phone picks up on the message they send you anyway. So yeah, do lock your phone. But what they're talking about in this article is the idea that in certain use situations, you don't need the lock screen. So when you're at home, at your house, there's really no reason to have the lock screen unless you have somebody over you don't trust. But most of your friends aren't going to be trying to steal your information or get your bank account numbers somehow. So, you know, why not have it unlocked where you can just hit the power button and your phone's ready to use? It's a really cool thing to do, especially if you are at home all the time. I don't know, Andrew, are you thinking about doing this or?
Oh yeah, that's why I was looking at it. I was considering it, but like I said, not that relevant to me right now because I've left the house like 4 times in since I've been home for the last like 4 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, if you're even if you're working from home, it kind of gets redundant. Where why do you need to keep unlocking your phone every time you want to check email? So it makes sense. So I was looking through the article and I saw that there was a couple. They had 2 apps and they both cost money. Tasker is a really cool app that I don't want to discredit, but there is a free app that I found when I got my Pebble, this thing, that anytime you're connected to either a trusted Bluetooth device or a trusted wireless network, it'll deactivate your security, and then you can just hit the power button and get a slide to unlock, or just you can deactivate the lock screen. And anytime it gets disconnected from that device or Wi-Fi network, it'll lock back up with a password or PIN. So it's pretty cool. It's a free app. It's called Pebble Locker. It's available in the Play Store. And you don't have to have a Pebble to use it.
How is that, by the way?
The Pebble?
Yeah.
It's pretty awesome. I mean, it's not as cool as like something like the Galaxy Gear. You know, black and white, e-paper display. That basically just puts notifications on your wrist. But I mean, my biggest reason for wanting it is I never get the notifications when my phone's in my pocket, and I don't take my phone out of my pocket unless I intend to use it. So, you know, I never get the text message when somebody sends it. I get it, you know, 15 minutes later or an hour later when I finally take my phone out of my pocket. This thing like vibrates anytime I get a phone call or a text message, and then I can just kind of preview it before I want and decide whether I want to take my phone out of my pocket or not.
Oh, that's kind of cool. That sounds a little more interesting to me. A lot of times because I don't have my phone strapped to my wrist, I kind of forget about it.
Yeah, actually,
I'm pretty bad. I'm not someone who lives on their phone.
Actually, if you want, we could jump down and talk about Google Glass because that's kind of related with the wearable technology.
Okay.
So I'll take this one. Google Glass has been only available as a pilot program. You have to get an invitation, and it's been slowly becoming easier to get an invitation. Well, this last week, Google opened up invitations to anybody who was a member of their Google Play All Access service, which runs for $9.99 a month, and you can stream and download as many songs as you like during that period. Now, there's DRM, of course, but the real point here is they're opening up the invitation base. Now, Google Glass is still $1,500, but you know some people do have $1,500 of disposable income to throw out the window anytime they like. But, yeah, right. I wish I was one of those people. But you know, Google Glass is one of those things that introduces glanceable information. Like the Pebble Watch does glanceable information, and it does it really well. Google Glass is always on your face. I'm not always looking at my watch.
So, are you interested in it, or could you care less?
I'm interested in it more because of the ethical issues regarding it. I'm kind of interested in how law is going to change more than actually how useful it is.
No. Kind of the same thing here. I'm waiting for Google Glass contacts that will be interesting if it's a high enough resolution that I can watch videos during a class. But Google Glass just seems too obvious while you're staring up at the ceiling, and everyone's like, "Did you have a brain aneurysm, or are you checking a notification on Google Glass?"
Right, and it's kind of so. Another thing released or announced this week was the Google Glass prescription information, which sounded like you would be able to get lens for a Google Glass frame for about $100 from Rochester something optical or something other. But poses the question, we're both in school, and how are schools going to deal with having a screen on your face feeding you answers to the test half the time?
Very simple. The same way they deal with baseball caps. Take it off and put it under your chair. Otherwise, you get kicked out.
Right. But if it's your glasses, you need to use to see the test. How are you going to deal with this? It's kind of like, are you going to say no Google Glass prescription, or are you going to wear your other pair of glasses?
Yeah. It's easy. Just ban it. They do that with anything. Anything they find remotely objectionable, they just ban it. Or they put a, what do you call it? Temporary ban, whatever the word is, like they did on E-cigs, which is another article we have, because I thought it was funny. But, I don't know. I'm just not all that interested in it, because I don't... Once I can have the Terminator heads-up display, if it becomes that, I'm good. I just want it picking up people and telling me their life story in like a little byline. That would be interesting. But since it's not doing that, it doesn't have that like augmented reality type thing going on. I don't know how interested I am in it yet. It's still so rudimentary.
Yes, folks, Yelp for people. It gets into the whole privacy issue, and we could jump on the privacy article we had this week too for this one too, because it's kind of like who can we get information on, who can't we get information on Google Glass if it's using facial recognition to tell you who people are. Is that going to have to be an opt-in thing, or are you going to get the same issue with Lulu, the Lulu app, where if you have a Facebook account, could be reviewed? I don't know if you heard about that.
No.
So the whole issue was that the Lulu app, if I'm saying that right, was this girls-only app where they could review guys, and anybody who had a Facebook account was subject to it. So the parallel I'm drawing here is who's going to say what about who, and who's going to write the BIOS for people if they do introduce something like that for Google Glass. It's kind of scary.
Lolly Lulu Law?
Yeah, right. Well, anyway, that's what I have to say for that one.
I'm going to leave that very obscure joke there, and we'll see if anyone can go find it.
Yeah. All right. So, do you want to jump on the E-cig one while we're at it?
Sure. So, in New York City, they banned e-cigarettes and it added to the public smoking ban, which just seems weird to me because, as far as I know, it's basically a nicotine straw, and that's about it. Like, it has, I think, water vapor smoke also with it, but it's like, I don't know. It seems like a straw. My friend has one, and I just don't see necessarily how it affects other people, other than being visually obtrusive, and kind of took one of my other friends aback when he was smoking in class, and he just pulled it out of his pocket, and my other friend nearly fainted at the brazenness of it, pulling out a cigarette in the middle of a class. So, other than being the same visual action as smoking a tobacco cigarette, I don't see the reason to ban it.
Yeah, and in the article they talked about the only thing they had issue with was it was a loophole in the system of trying to keep that out of the visual eye of the public. They don't want to discourage smoking because it's bad for you. They want to discourage smoking in New York because they don't want people outside smoking. They don't like the visual of people outside smoking or in public places smoking. So they're banning it on that principle. Now, whether that's right or wrong, I don't know. But you know, this one was pretty easy to see coming for New York, who already have like the strictest smoking regulations of any state, and just made 21 the legal age for smoking.
Yeah, well, not the last time I was in Chicago, but the time before that, the whole city smelled like smoke to me. So I did not enjoy my time down there.
No, and I mean, like, you know, I worked in retail and I sold plenty of these things, and there was all these ideas like, oh, it's better for you, it's not as bad as cigarettes for you. And, you know, the book's still out on that one. Is it really any better for you or not? I mean, the FDA found it still had carcinogenic
E-cigs?
compound. Yeah, well, nicotine is carcinogenic to begin with, so...
Oh, yeah. I was more stating on it, I don't care what people do to themselves as long as it doesn't involve me, and I don't really see how e-cigarettes really involve me. So...
Right, and there's no evidence to suggest that e-cigarettes have the same secondhand smoke issue that traditional cigarettes have.
Well, there's nothing being emitted from it. That's why it's kind of obvious, I would think.
I don't know.
Okay, so let's move on from this. There's not a whole lot to say on e-cigs. They're a thing. They were banned in New York City. They're banned at our college. It's kind of funny. So Steam removes games from people's libraries that are no longer playable. That's kind of amazing to me. So it really brings into perspective and shows how services like Steam, you're not buying the game. You're buying the right to play it. So at any time, they can pretty much just remove the game. But in this case, what game was it? It was a Sega game, I think. No, it was a Square Enix game.
Yeah.
Order of War. It's like some kind of airplane game. I don't know. I've never heard of it before this article. It's a second game that's been just removed from people's libraries. But the reason they removed it is because there's no servers for it anymore. So essentially, it's dead. But with some games like, I think Battlefront 2, which is a Star Wars game, there's third-party servers that people kind of like hack together for it so you can play multiplayer. So it's kind of like they just revoked your right to play the game. Do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think of anything, the best way of handling it would have been to not pull the game from the library, and when they tried to launch it, have a little notice explaining that there's no way of playing the game anymore. Or, I mean, the big issue here was that they pulled the game because there was no way to play it. The servers went down, and the way Square Enix does their DRM, you couldn't play the game without the servers being up. So even if you wanted to do a Hamachi LAN connection, it wasn't going to work because the DRM servers were down. It would have been better for them to put a notice up when you tried to launch the game saying, here's the situation, the servers are broken, and then...
Well, not broken, they're taken offline.
Yeah, the servers
it was a very small community.
Yeah, and then I think what they should have done was they should have put that notice up there, and then they should have requested that Square Enix provide an update that breaks the DRM protection, because the DRM protection was holding back people from the campaign, which wasn't reliant on the servers other than the DRM.
Oh, this wasn't just a multiplayer game?
No, this did have a offline campaign that you could play, but the DRM broke access to that.
Yeah, it's sucky. I think that's more of a Square Enix problem than Steam. I don't know if just removing it though was the right way to go about doing this.
I don't know. I think Steam probably lacked the ability to keep people from buying it. I mean, you could put the price on there as something ridiculous, $500 for the game, but
previously there's games that such that have like copyright infringement or other things like that, where they pull from the store, but if you already bought it, it stays in your library. They took this out of people's libraries.
Right, which I think is wrong. I think they should have, let their customers know that the game wasn't going to work.
Yeah. I don't know. It's only happened twice. I'm just more concerned about what if this happens to a game that isn't old as dog crap and not worth playing. What if it's like, I don't know, we don't like this publisher anymore, we're removing all their games from our system. Oh, there goes all my EA games that I bought. That sucks.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is why we haven't seen this issue a whole lot before. It looked like nobody really even noticed the game had so few players until, recently, when it was picked up on Reddit. So, I don't know. It just doesn't make sense to me that they would pull the game and then just leave everybody wondering, well, what the hell happened to that game?
Okay, let's move on to another topic.
Okay, so Google is closing down yet another company. They have obtained a company and have closed up shop for said company. It's not like they haven't done this a dozen times before, but this time Bump and Flock are the victims of Google's, I don't know, jump on
Consolidation
innovation.
campaign.
Yeah, consolidation campaign. Call it what you want. But, I mean, I can't really feel bad about this because typically the apps that they buy out, if they're good, the apps stick around as separate parts while Google implements them in their own stuff. Or if they're really good, they just become the same thing under Google's name. I mean, you look at Android, we wouldn't have had Android if Google hadn't bought out Andy Rubin's startup.
Weren't they making a Linux camera operating system or something like that? I believe that's what was happening with Android before the first Android phone came out.
I think it was just going to be, smartphones were really different before the iPhone. So smartphones were looked more like Blackberries before the iPhone, with a couple exception cases in Samsung. But so they were building, a camera-focused smartphone that was very similar to what you saw on Windows Mobile or BlackBerry OS before. But Google is buying out Bump, which is this idea that you can take two of your phones and here, I'll flip the thing. Take two of your phones and bump them together, which sets off a wireless file transfer between the two devices. So you have the app open on both devices, you bump them together, and there you have it. Everything transfers that you need. It's useful for contact transfers, photo transfers, etc.
Yeah. But the whole problem I have with that app, and the reason why I only used it like once, is because for that specifically, you had to have the Bump app, which not everyone, almost no one had. And another reason why, I don't know, it's just, now that Google has it, I'm almost thinking it's going to become like integrated somehow into NFC, which will mean it's completely alienated from all iPhones, which majority of the people I know have, rather than Android. So,
well, my bet is actually because NFC, the way NFC does file transfer is when you get two NFC-enabled devices and you put them together.
It's just an initiator.
It just initiates the same wireless transfer protocol that Bump used. So my guess is that they want to take this divide in that iPhones don't have NFC and say, here's an app. You can use it with any Android device that has won't work with NFC for you. You can tap your devices together, and the same setup for that protocol will still work.
Yeah, I don't like to see things go. It's so sad. And it seems like when Google gets stuff, they need to integrate it and make it have a crappy name, like Gmail, Google+. No originality. It has to be somehow Google.
Well, I don't care so long as it's a good service. So long as it works, it works. And that's why I use Gmail and Google Plus, because they're really attractive services that just work. Unlike Facebook, which can't decide for its life what kind of 40-year-old virgin it wants to be.
What?
Facebook changes its look every 6 months. It's like, can you just pick what you want to do and stick with it?
I suppose. I don't know. I haven't been using Facebook. I just check it occasionally to see if someone left me a message on it because they're too lazy to send me a message on something else.
Yeah. I mean, I think I don't even keep the Facebook app on my phone anymore. I just use the Facebook Messenger because that at least works. That's the one part of Facebook I think people still use.
Oh, well, isn't it just Skype?
For video. If you want video, then you got to use Skype, which is hilarious because Microsoft is now competing for that space so much more than they were before.
Okay. So moving on, I came across an article about Doge, which I thought was pretty funny. The meme is started from 2 photos, basically, of what kind of dog was it? I forgot what kind of dog it was.
Now I gotta look it up. Doge dog. Here's the article.
I don't know. Some kind of Japanese dog. A Shiba Inu?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's based off like 2 pictures of 2 different Shiba Inus, one that's in Japan and one that's from like United States. And I just thought it was pretty funny on how the meme came about. It's pretty much just people posting dog pictures. They're like, oh, here's a picture of my dog. And then the internet takes it and runs away with it. Just all you need to do is make a really nice picture of a pet, and suddenly you make a meme. It just got me thinking, like, I could totally do that with my cat. I have awesome photos of him. Now I just have to figure out a way to make it into a meme.
Wow, dog, so much. Meme.
Yeah. I don't know, there's not a whole lot to say on that other than the creation of a meme, it seems, is kind of interesting.
Oh,
and do you think
it's
been orchestrated?
Yeah, I think it's a crapshoot, honestly. I mean, there are companies out there that do things that try to make memes, try to make them happen. But, most of the times the ones that we really remember were just complete crapshoots, why they got started. I mean, why are pictures of cats so much fun when you put captions on them?
Yeah. Okay, I don't know. There's not a whole lot to say about that. Check out the link in the description if you want to look up more. It's kind of interesting.
It's a funny story. I recommend it. Okay, so we already talked about Google Glass.
Now we can talk about the new Mac Pro, which is about the same price as that Netgear NAS. Because it has similar parts, except it obviously has nothing inside of it because it's 4 times bigger than a soda can. So it's freaking tiny. But it's kind of impressive, mainly because people are like, wow, it's so expensive. And if you go look around at all, any Xeon-based server machine that you could buy from like HP or something is about the same price. So in that category, they're actually competitive. But that's more because Intel has stupid prices on Xeons. But I don't know what you thought about it. I don't necessarily like the idea of, yes, you have this really sleek computer, but what professional wants to have their workspace full of external accessories? Because with this, everything you have to put on the outside. So if you're editing videos, you're a music creator or anything, there's a lot of expansion things you put in it. So in this case, you have to put it on through Thunderbolt 2, which means your whole desk is filled with like breakout boards and hard disks.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. I think it's no more effective. I think it's just easier. I think it just takes up more space. I think somebody's just going to end up having, a drawer that they keep all of their computer in. Well, here I have my Mac Pro, my disk drive, my Blu-ray burner, my 8 terabyte hard drive, and my...
But do you really think that this is the direction, I guess, content creator pro level computers should take? Like, I understand this with like a MacBook Air, an iMac, and an iPhone. You want it to be sleek, all that kind of stuff. But with a desktop, isn't that the one bastion of hope? The one place where I get my giant computer with all my internal garbage? Why do they have to do that with the Mac Pro?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that anybody in one of those situations is going to have, at the very least, access to somebody who can, upgrade their computer. I think that the idea is that let's make it as dead simple as possible. You just plug in the new peripheral that you need. But, it's really no harder than a desktop is. I mean, you might think a desktop computer is pretty hard to put together, but it's really not all that hard when all you're talking about is peripherals like hard drives and...
Well, you literally just open the side of the cabinet and plug some PCI card in. That's all you're doing in those.
Turn some screws and you're done.
Yeah. In this, you're just plugging, instead of plugging in a PCI card, you're plugging in a Thunderbolt port. And instead of having it nicely, conveniently stacked up inside your tower, they're all sitting on your desk.
So $13,243 is the maxed out Mac Pro with the 4K sharp monitor that you can pick up.
Yeah,
so
just letting you know that a majority of that price is the cost of the Xeon and the monitor. So it sounds ridiculous, but a lot of that price is not Apple's fault. So I wouldn't necessarily look at this and go, oh, it's just all Apple markup. Not really. Yeah. Intel charges really stupid prices for the Xeons. Like, I think the high-end Xeon is like $4,000 or $5,000.
Yeah, if you look at the build page for the Mac Pro, adding that 2.7 gigahertz 12-core processor adds $3,000 to the cost of the machine.
Yeah. And also, I just wanted to kind of mention for anyone looking at this or talking about this, this is also a very small market. I don't even need this. Like, I can't think of a way to utilize this. I'd be perfectly happy with what I have, which is running an i5 3570K, which is like a middle-of-the-road processor. And I have one slightly above, like low high-end graphics card, a 7850. So that plays all of the games I want to play on my desktop, and that also lets me do anything I want with creation software. So whether that be audio editing, video editing, Photoshop, all that kind of stuff I've been using, I haven't had any problems. So using this, you would have to be doing crazy stuff with like CAD or Maya or After Effects. Like, this is, you're running a business if you're buying this. So I just find it kind of strange how it gets so much publicity when this really isn't a consumer device. You don't want to buy this. You're just wasting your money if you buy it. If it has a Xeon in it and you don't own the business, you probably screwed up somewhere.
Yeah, I was going to say two things about this thing. The real spectacle of this thing is the form factor. This kind of machine in this form factor has never been done before, quite like this.
No, they're usually full towers. This thing is smaller than my ITX case, which is the smallest, like, buildable desktop. It's like half the size of that. Again, that thing's tiny. That's a square foot of desk space on my desk, so that's tiny. And this is like half the size of that. And normally this is a full tower case, which is one of those behemoths you normally see next to someone's desk.
Right, and to make it the even cooler thing about this thing is that not only is it this thing so small, it's all the parts are user replaceable. I mean, you have to replace them with proprietary versions of name brand cards, but you can go in and upgrade this thing.
Don't race yourself that door quite yet. You can't replace the graphics cards because they're like boards, they're not cards. And you're not just like normal PCI cards you can replace. You can replace the RAM. If you're crazy, you could replace the Xeon because it's not soldered in. And I think that's about it. You could replace big chunks of it with proprietary parts, but if Apple's selling those, I highly doubt it. That just means you'll probably be able to repair it at the Genius Bar cheaper. Easier for them to repair.
And faster, probably.
Yeah, they can just swap out one of the graphics card boards on that triangle instead of replacing the whole thing because it's all integrated.
Yeah, I'd hate to see somebody go up to the Genius Bar with their Mac Pro and be like, my graphics card burned out and it's not under warranty, and they hand them the bill for that thing. God.
Those are expensive. And also, they're mediocre in like actual game performance or anything. I've been casually looking for benchmarks on it just because I'm kind of curious. But those are designed more for compute performance than actual graphic rendering. So I don't know why anyone would buy it.
These would be great if you're Bitcoin mining, I'm pretty sure, but not so much for... No? Okay.
You need dedicated hardware for Bitcoin mining now. Using graphics cards to Bitcoin mine is really power inefficient.
Yeah, I know nothing about Bitcoin mining other than that a lot of people were buying tons of graphics cards to do it for some reason.
That was like a year ago. As its life increases, it will get to the point eventually where you won't be able to mine Bitcoins, like the maximum number, it reached its peak. But I think that's still a few years off. But the more people mine them, the harder it gets to mine coins. So they've gotten to the point now where originally you could do it with your CPU, then that became useless, and then you could do it with the GPU, and now it's some other custom hardware. Basically, you can slot in PCI cards, and all they are is dedicated miners. So that's kind of an expensive thing. I don't really know why someone would want to get into that.
And this is all just to control the distribution of the currency?
It's to check. It's like to manage the transactions, check the master transaction list or something like that, and then it also puts coins into circulation by give it to the people who are feeding into that processing power to manage the list or whatever.
Cloud currency, I like it.
That's basically what it is.
It doesn't help that the governments don't like it because it's hard to regulate, but...
That's a very complicated subject that I don't know enough really to know, just passive knowledge about it. If you really want to watch something like that, go look up Tech Syndicate or something else. They've gone pretty in-depth about it. In layman's terms, that's interesting.
Okay, well I think we've exhausted that topic. So let's see.
Tangents run about.
Well, those are the fun ones. That's what people listen to these things for. How the hell did you get on Star Wars from USB?
Yeah.
Well, all right. So here's one. So there was a federal judge. I don't remember what appellate court this got up to, but who dismissed the ACLU's case against the NSA's metadata collection. Pretty much just said the ACLU doesn't have a case because despite the fact that the documents were leaked, they're still classified, so we can't admit them in court. So that was pretty much the case. The judge wasn't rendering an opinion other than that of there's no case here.
So it's more that they just can't use the NSA's tracking metadata as a thing because it's not official?
Yeah, it's still classified, so it's not admissible in court.
But if it's public information, like, I don't know, it's weird.
It's like Area 51. Everybody knows it's there. You can walk out to where it is, within a decent distance of being able to see it, and write about it all you want, but the government was still going to deny it.
I don't know. I don't think Area 51 is a good comparison because yes, it's an Air Force base. That's all you know about it. Anything inside of it's conjecture.
Well, yeah, I suppose you're right.
This you know what's inside of it, so.
Honestly, looking at how the court system works, they're only gonna actually render an opinion on this issue when they get to the Supreme Court, because the Supreme Court can deal with this despite the fact that the documents are not admissible.
My big problem with this is just how seemingly no one cares about metadata. And I use metadata quite a lot in like my photographs and video files. Like I'm always checking metadata and making sure like I'm not putting anything out I don't want to put out, and also just for my own cataloging of photos when I have a lot, I can find stuff easier. And that has all sorts of information, like just in a photo. It will tell you what kind of camera you used, what exposure, focal length, all that kind of stuff. And then you can also have titles, your names, your location. And this is just with a picture. There's other files that have completely different metadata. That's just like the background information attached to a file. So that's a lot of information that is apparently not protected. Like it's like, oh yeah, if you get that, yeah, just run with it. And also, metadata can also be a term just for broad-reaching data. So if you're going to talk about a file, you can also talk about a person and basically say their metadata. Oh, so it's not protectable information that this is where you've been, this is what you're doing, this is what you own, this is how you use it. But as long as you're not talking about what they're doing on it, it's fine. Just the broad data on it. That's all meta means. Meta is the overarching data.
Yeah, to put it in perspective for those of you out there who might have been saying, well, this isn't such a big deal because it's just metadata and that's really not useful. Well, metadata from your phone that they're pulling has your name, the time that they pulled it, and the location where you were when they pulled it. So they can see where you go. So, if you're going to the adult bookstore, they'll know that you were at the adult bookstore. Now, whether they want to know that or they want to use it somehow, they know it. But there was a case in in Minnesota here, actually, where the police departments were using it to profile people. So, no, it's not inconceivable that, they could see, oh, you go to a bunch of bars all day, every day. You might be a risk for DWI. We're going to send a cruiser out to where you go regularly at 5 p.m. and see if you're drunk.
Okay. I think we should get up to wrapping this up. You want to talk about the last topic you have?
You can announce it if you like.
No, you can go with it. I don't know anything about it.
So, there was a report out of MPD that said that Chromebooks had taken about 21% of the United States notebook market in 2013, going from almost no sales to something like 1.7 million sales of these devices. And so that in itself really isn't that great because notebook and computer sales are cyclical. They do well 1 year and then they don't do well for the next 2 years, and then they do well again. It all depends on when the majority of the market is in its upgrade swing. So this could just be that Chromebooks hit their upgrade swing, but it could be that the platform's maturing.
Who buys these? I don't get these things. They're just a ton of crap to me.
Well, I guess, so for people in our positions, I mean, I'm a writer, so I wanted one so I could write about them on a regular basis because Google is doing some really cool things with web apps and making it a usable platform. But for people in our positions where we do production work, we do visual work, we do a lot of intensive processing, it's not a good platform for it. But you look at what most people are doing every day. Everything could be done in the web for the majority of people.
What I want to know is why doesn't someone just get Nexus 10 or an iPad and a Bluetooth keyboard? What does this offer that doesn't offer way more, such as storage options, a CPU that isn't complete junk, and also smaller and more convenient device with a touchscreen? Like, I don't get these. Like, they just seem out of place to me.
So I have my Nexus 10 here, and the latest Chromebook to come out was the HP Chromebook 11, which was based on, you guessed it, the same processor, the same amount of RAM, the same amount of disk space, had a crappier IPS display, and crappier speakers. The only thing it doesn't have is a keyboard. It even has a bigger battery on the Nexus 10.
What? How does that have a bigger battery? You have a lot more space to put battery in the netbook or notebook or laptop, whatever you're going to call the form factor.
Yeah, so the Chromebook 11, I believe, has a 4,000 milliamp battery in it, and the Nexus 10 has a 9,000 milliamp hour battery.
4,000? That's crap. That's only twice as much as my Nexus 5.
Yeah, so not really that great. But I got a Chromebook this Christmas because I wanted to write about them.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I got here. I'll pick it up because we're on the last topic and I don't need the second screen anymore. So I got this turquoise HP Chromebook 14, the nicer one with the 4 gigs of RAM and the mobile data. And I found, surprisingly, half of the stuff I do on my computer could be done on a Chromebook without any problem whatsoever. But as soon as I want to do anything real, it's useless.
Yeah, this is why were money not an issue, and I already had a laptop that works like crap. So after college, when supposedly in my magical fairy tale world money isn't an issue, and I'm going to be getting a new laptop, I would get the MacBook Air, because I find that the 13-inch MacBook Air to be the perfect form factor for a laptop, and also it has just enough power that I can do light editing, Photoshop, and all that kind of stuff on it, and all the content viewing, which is normally what I do on a laptop, works exceedingly well, and that's what you're using a Chromebook for. So I just view it as a crappy MacBook Air that is a lot cheaper.
Yeah, I mean, the HP, the one I was holding up, it was $350, and you got the 4 gigs of RAM and the mobile data through T-Mobile. That's really the only benefit of this. It's a $300 notebook for the 2 gig one. And, the only real benefit of it is it's a hell of a lot faster than a computer with the exact same specs running Windows.
I don't know. I don't view Windows, the x86 version of it, as a competitor to the Chromebook, just because they're just not in the same category. Windows is more of a I'm gonna play video games or do beefy stuff and create content. Same thing with OS X. And the only thing on OS X end that kind of blurs the line is the MacBook Air, but that's so expensive that it clearly pushes it out of that category. And then what I view it more as a competitor with is the ARM-based tablets. And it's more like just an ARM-based notebook that can you even use it offline?
Yeah, I actually wrote up a short article after I got it because I wanted to know how usable it was when you went offline with the Chromebook. And it's surprising that you actually can get most of what you're going to do offline done, but it still runs into the same bottlenecks you have when you take any other laptop offline.
But with a normal laptop, I'm probably going to be using some kind of document application stuff. I'm not going to be using Google Docs. So what does it do? Does Google Docs and stuff work, or does it like cache it offline until it can upload it, or do they just not work?
No, they work. It's just it's kind of does it work this way or does it work this way kind of thing. When you go offline with the Chromebook, if you have the Google Drive page open, it works just fine. But if it's not open, you have to go through the Chromebook's file manager, which integrates Google Drive. You can create new documents if you have the Google Docs, Google Sheets, and Google Slides Chrome apps installed. But otherwise, if you don't have those installed, then you can't create them offline.
I don't know. Maybe it's for someone. I can tell you this though, I will never buy one. I wouldn't even use it if it was given to me for free.
Yeah, and I think the only real benefit it has for is that it's cheap. It's really cheap, and you get decent performance if all you're going to do is use the internet.
Oh, here's another question I should ask. What can it do that my Nexus 5 can't?
Be productive when actually trying to type a Word document. Let's just go with that.
Okay, so I could rig up a dock for my Nexus 5 and have it... actually, I can just get a little mini... whatever the OTG cable is for HDMI out, hook it up to my monitor, have a Bluetooth keyboard, and then open up a document on it.
Yeah, so, exactly.
Hence productive.
You get into situations where like the Chromebook's going to be able to format documents, say for an MLA paper, whereas the Google Drive app for Android actually isn't capable of doing that. I've been doing a lot of my blogging for the website on the Chromebook to test it out, and loading the WordPress interface on a small device is pretty much useless. You can't really do any of the things you need to do on a mobile device, but you can do them in the Chromebook. It's really, if you can reduce your life to using only Chrome, it works really, really well, and Google's working hard to make those web apps available. But if you need Photoshop, if you need actual Microsoft Office, you're just screwed.
What about using your Nexus 10? Could you do everything on there just as well? Or is it, other than convenience sake of having a keyboard hardware attached to it, is there any real reason to use a Chromebook?
It depends. The processor in the Chromebook's a lot faster. It's an Intel Celeron Haswell chip clocked at 1.4 gigahertz. So that's actually a lot faster and more powerful than the 1.7 gigahertz dual core in the Nexus 7.
What? Outside somewhere. Go look for it.
An intermission for Andrew. No, so I don't know. I'd have to actually compare like the HP Chromebook 11 to the Nexus 10 to see the real difference, because those two hardware-wise are almost exactly the same minus the keyboard.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. It still seems like a weird product category like netbooks. They didn't last very long. I just don't see why this should be separate from Android. Like, I think they should be combined somehow. You should just have this as a form factor of the lightweight, like, terminal variety. This is basically just a Chrome terminal. It's not meant to be doing anything local on it, and that's the big thing I have a problem with.
Yeah, really it's not designed to be offline, and that's why every Chromebook since the original CR48 prototype has been available with optional 3G or 4G data connection, because they're not designed to be used offline.
Yeah. That's kind of why I like Android better, is because they're designed to be used offline and online. It's a full operating system, where Chrome is literally just a web browser on a laptop. It just seemed weird. Okay, let's end this, and I'll talk about an Android app that I'd recommend people checking out. I spent a good week or two looking around for podcast apps, because I listen to a lot of podcasts, and a lot of the ones I was looking at just looked like crap. Like, they either had really bad designs, they're too white and burn my eyes at night, stuff like that. And then I came across Podcast Addict, which looks really great because it's a dark color scheme. It has very good flat design. And if you're like me and you would pay $2 or $3, whatever it was, to get rid of the ads, it's way better. And also, it doesn't have weird playback issues when you're streaming audio, so you don't always have to download everything. You can just stream it. And also, you can set it so it checks at intervals for new content, where other ones have that problem. I'll let you finish this.
Very cool. So, what's the real advantage over something else? Well, I guess, okay, Andrew's going to take a break here. So I'll move on to my Android app pick, which was Google Now Wallpaper HD. It's a little app that will automatically set the images from Google Now as your wallpapers, and they'll change throughout the day based upon parameters that you can choose. So you can set it so that at between 4 a.m. and 7 a.m. it shows the dawn image of your choice, and then between 7 a.m. and 10 a.m. you can have the day thing. So it's a cool wallpaper app, and it's a real easy way to customize your Android device. I don't know, I'm using it right now, and it just changes throughout the day. It's probably flipped over to the dusk mode, yeah. So
Cool.
Just change this wallpaper. You can choose a couple different cities. You can choose Chicago or San Francisco, that kind of stuff. And it works pretty well. It doesn't use battery life like a live wallpaper would use, so there aren't any issues like that. But I'd recommend it. I wrote up a review on the Freed Up Thoughts blog. If you're interested, there's a link in the description, or will be anyway.
Okay. So, yeah, this is still a beta version of the podcast, I'm going to say. You should add that in the name still, because until we set up a reliable, solid way to do this that I'm happy with the production quality, it's beta. I'm still not happy with the production quality of this. More because I need to buy a decent webcam, I think.
Yeah, and I'm going to be looking into that as well. As you can tell, we're on Christmas break, so Andrew is still visiting with his folks, and I just got back yesterday. So things aren't really up to stuff quite yet in the podcast, but I'm sure it will be soon.
Okay, so you can follow me on Twitter at @andwe'redone, and I also made a new Flickr page with the same name. And I've been trying to do a series of photos a day. Let's see how long I can keep that going. And you? What's going on?
Technical difficulties. I am sorry. Apparently there are now 2 of me.
Cool.
Yeah. So, I don't know, it just logged me out automatically, and I had to log back in quick.
Oh, okay. So, where can they find you posting in regular intervals?
All right, I write at the Freed Up Thoughts blog, freedupthoughts.com. You can check out my posts. I write pretty regularly on topics on Android and Chrome coming up pretty soon. More topics on iOS coming in the future. I'm available at twitter.com /BiasSman. And this podcast will be for now on my YouTube channel under Technology Unit. You can see if we can do anything about that moniker.
You should look and see if you can download it somehow, rip the audio, and then upload it as a podcast.
Okay, yeah, I'll do that.
And I could probably do it too, but you can try. And then, I don't know. That's about it. I'm not sure what we're going to do for video still. Like,
well, if you have
I kind of like to do the video more post-production, like insert things like web pages, relevant things we're talking about, and maybe use better cameras with cuts and stuff. But I don't know, live's okay too. We could maybe do it live and then also, I don't know, shoot it live and then release it as post-production. Something along those lines.
Live stream with Redux following shortly.
What?
Yeah, we'd stream it live and then we'd rip the live copy down. We'd we'd go over it with post-production, add any elements we wanted. But we definitely need to get better hardware for web streaming, that kind of stuff.
Okay, yeah, I don't know, probably use a different application or record locally and stream, because like the video file looks like crap, and that's just more Google Hangouts than anything else, because like the camera on here is actually really good, so it can at least do 1080p, and that looks like sub 480 on the stream.
Yeah.
Really low bitrate, in other words.
I don't know. So I guess to anybody who's watching this or will watch this, if you have any suggestions for podcasting clients, VoIP, anything that we could use for the podcast, you can leave a comment down in the comment section. Like, subscribe, all that fun junk. It helps us out.
Well, you don't really have to talk about VoIP clients. I pretty much know what I want to use in terms of that. It's more video. I have no idea what to do, because Skype sucks, Hangouts suck. What else is there?
Yeah, really.
I don't know.
All right, I guess we can try out our little outro. Well, we've done most of it, so I guess. I
already told her you can follow me, and we're done on Twitter, and yeah, same name on Flickr, and that's about it.
Yeah.
You?
So.
Again, you?
Yeah. Tobias Mann for Twitter. I'm the editor at the Freed Up Thoughts blog at freedupthoughts.com. Check it out. This will be up there shortly. Yeah. Thanks for watching.
Okay. End the live stream.
Yes, end the live stream.